Hi, everyone. My name is Kirk Bachman, and welcome back to The Ultimate Dish. In today's episode, we're speaking with Master Chef Daryl Shular, one of the most talented, respected, and highly decorated chefs in the country. He's the founder and CEO of Daryl Shular Hospitality Group, a family of 4 culinary institutions that are shaping not only the art of serving exquisite meals with sustainable practices, but also the process by which we educate, train, and support the next generation of chefpreneurs. Daryl has won 12 gold medals and 8 best in shows in local and national competitions, one of which was won against 63 teams at the IKA Culinary Olympics in Erfurt, Germany. He's one of the youngest and one of only a few African American chefs to be featured in the prestigious American Historical Archives, the History Makers. He was inducted into the Smithsonian African-American Museum in Washington, D.C. And last, but most definitely not least, Chef Daryl earned the culinary industry's highest honor of Master Chef when he passed the grueling 130-hour, 8-day Master Chef exam in 2014. He is the world's first African-American to accomplish this achievement. Join us today as we chat with Chef Daryl about the principles that guide his culinary journey and the innovative ways that he and his team are making waves in the industry. Welcome, Chef. How are you?
Kirk, my friend, how are you, sir?
Really good, buddy. Really good. Love the background. You're in your element there in Atlanta, right?
I'm in my playground right here. This is my home.
That's your playground. Hey, I should say congratulations to the Atlanta Braves, World Series champions, huh?
Yeah, finally after a long stretch, we got it again.
Yeah, since the 90s. That's awesome.
I love it.
You know, there's so many memories and emotions that come rushing in when I look at the website for your enterprise and I see the old Le Cordon Bleu Atlanta space.
Right.
How is that? Has that been just unbelievably, because you were the executive chef there for a long time. And so is it a lot of fun? Does it just feel like home for you?
It really does. I remember the first time coming back here, and it's like going back to your childhood home. All the memories just start to flow back into your mind, and then you just say, "Wow, I'm back here again." What a complete 360. And to be here in this legacy that we built, and we really built something special with Le Cordon Bleu. And we spent some time together in Chicago and here in Atlanta, and we knew what we was on. We knew that we was at the forefront of this industry and the turn that this industry was taking with culinary arts. And so to be back here launching the Shular Institute to continue that legacy, I'm super proud and honored to be back here again.
Well, you impacted so many students that came through that campus over the years as well. So super, super cool story. And I have to, I have to mention too, as I see you and start to communicate with you again, I remember when you came to Chicago a few times to train for the Master Chef exam, and it was such, just a thoughtful and amazing experience for the students and the faculty and the staff members who assisted and were in awe every single day. So again, and we had no idea what was going to happen. The great chef Ed Leonard was there, and so many great people. And thank you for those memories. Right? I mean, those are some of the memories that I really cherish. Right? Being able to watch you develop, and I remember that you're such a tall chef. I remember you had to have that kind of little that little apparatus that brought the food up a little higher to you back at the day.
My little Optimus Prime there.
Yeah, we did. So I mean, at the end of the day, you've carved out a very, very impressive culinary career for yourself. And what I have to ask right off the bat, was becoming a master chef always a goal, or did it just kind of happen organically as the next logical step in your journey?
That's a great question. Becoming a master chef really didn't, come on my radar until like years into my career. Only thing I knew that I wanted to be someone great in this industry and be respected. And it wasn't until like when I graduated from culinary school and the chef that actually gave the commencement speech, his name was Chef Daryl Evans, and he was on the 1992 Culinary Olympic team, and rest his soul. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2014, a few months before I took the exam. But just sitting there as a 19-year-old kid and listening to him speak, I said to myself, wow, if he can do it, I can do it. And wow, his name is Daryl. My name is Daryl. And what's great about this story is that I had an opportunity to really work with them and really develop. So then I said, hey, I want to be on the Olympic team as well. And everything that I did up until that point, from training with chefs and doing competitions and traveling around the Southeast, just doing all kinds of ACF, salons and getting medals and getting feedback from judges, led me to become a member of the 2008 Culinary Olympic team with Chef Edward Leonard and Chef Jill Bosich. And that platform allowed me to have the tools that I need to go and pursue. The ultimate goal, of course, is becoming a master chef. And, we all master the art of cooking. Let's just go ahead and establish that. There's so many chefs in this world have mastered the art of cooking, but I didn't want just a self-imposed title. I wanted to go do something that a lot of people said that couldn't be done. And especially with people of color, they just said that the test wasn't designed for us. And I said, well, unfortunately, it will be designed for us. So everything that I did was to go and attempt to take this test and to be successful at it. And in 2014, as you know, of course, I've been able to pass and be a representation of the certified master chefs.
Such a great answer. Such a great story. I had the good fortune of meeting Chef Daryl Evans as well in Scottsdale. He was a guest speaker for the Scottsdale Culinary Institute. And we spent a little bit of time together. Super impactful human being. Yeah. Thanks for reminding me of that great story. So you just brought this up a little bit. What does it mean to you to be the first African-American to accomplish this feat that in many ways, people thought couldn't be done? There's only 70 total master chefs anyway in the United States, right? 70.
I think it's 72.
72. Yeah.
The number is right around 72, 73.
Yeah.
It was never my intention, Kurt, to be the first. That was never the goal. The goal for me is just to become a CMC, period, whether I was the second, third, or fourth, or whatever. And I just wanted to pursue my goals and achieve it and just be an example to those people, even from my community or any community, to say, hey, if Chef Daryl can come from Central Florida with a single mother who worked in the citrus industry, who made $10,000 a year, that lived in a little 2-bedroom home, barely 400 square foot. And for me to come out of those situations and those circumstances and to be a living testament that someone like me, who didn't really grow up around restaurants or food, anything like that, to go from being a kid in Polk County to a master chef, 1 to 72 in the world, I think that's the story that I really wanted to tell. And not only to obtain that credential, but to be a student all over again. Because to master your craft is to not only be a master at the pinnacle, but to also go back and be a student all over again and be the ultimate servant. Because even here in my operation, a lot of people are just very surprised that I have a mop in my hand, sometimes mopping the floor or sweeping underneath the stations and busting dishes. I think that's the humility that you should have whenever you're pursuing something of the ultimate title there. So I'm just proud to be a part of the group of, talented world chefs of, 72 master chefs, and just to be a good representation and to lead and guide other people to be a CMC as well.
I think I know how you answer this, but is that your most proud achievement, or where you sit right now impacting young people that come to you? Is that even more impactful now?
I think it just continues to grow. I think at that time, being a CMC was my life dream. And then after you attain a title, then what do you do with that then? So then my goal was to say, okay, now let's go and help as many people as we possibly can with this gift that I have and this voice that I have.
Sure.
And go out there and lead the pathway, enlighten the pathway, so that others who feel like they've been voted less likely to succeed, and those who've been defeated, show them that they can overcome those obstacles and pursue a life in the hospitality industry and one day be a master of their craft as well.
Sure. A lot of respect comes with that. Thank you for that. We all have reasons for the things that we do, right? Why we pursue certain careers, certain paths, and for many chefs and cooks, it's that I've spoken with, it's linked to childhood memories, right? Or some life events that expose them to some passion related to culinary. For me, being a 4th generation chef and super proud, following my father and my grandfather's footsteps, I always felt like I would follow their lead, right? But it was, for me, it wasn't until, and I was probably in my 20s, but it wasn't until a very, very emotional moment in my life when my father was taking care of my mother, who had become ill, leaving the operation, our restaurant, our family restaurant, to me. And it wasn't until then that I realized that this is my career. I can do this. Not to get too deep into it, but it was, and you've been here, chef, it was a late Saturday night. We just wrapped up service, but my father was the pastry chef. I was cuisine, right? And I knew it was going to be a long night of prep, getting ready for brunch service the next morning without my father, right? And there I was by myself in the kitchen. He was really known for his profiteroles and a lot of other pastry work, right? There I was in the middle of the night praying that this pâte à choux would puff, right? I need this to work, right? And when it did, I remember just, weeping, right? Missing my family, but also it worked. I did it.
Right.
This is my career. This is my career. Can you, you talked about your mom a little bit. Can you paint that picture for us, that moment in your career when you knew this is it? This is what I have been chosen to do.
Wow, Kurt, beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. And I think our passion always, at least for me and most chefs that I've met, their passion began at home. And normally it's tied to our parents, either your mother or father. In my case, it was my mother. And unfortunately, in 2017, she passed away. And so the memories that I have from her was that she would always say to me that she saw me in a dream before I was born. And she said, you know what, Daryl, you're supposed to be someone great. And of course, I could have checked that up to just mom just being this Christian lady who just believes in everything, God, whatever, and not really took that to heart. But I took that to heart and I said, you know what, I'm going to try to live out her dream through me and be that greatness that she saw in me. And I remember the time when in 2004, I went to Orlando as one of 4 chefs who competed for a national competition for nutrition. And I remember walking in, it was at the ACF conference in Orlando, and we had the judges meeting, right? And so I walk in and I see all these chefs and they got all their badges on their coats, and I'm coming in with this little raggedy chef coat on. And I was just so terrified and I was just so defeated mentally, like, wow, they just look like they're going to do better than me. And I remember telling my mother that, and she was like, don't worry about what people look like or what they possess. Just worry about you and making sure that you possess and showcase the best of you. And I went back and I competed, and it was only the 4 chefs that represented the United States. And I won the competition, got a national title.
Wow.
And it was that moment that I said to myself, you know what, Daryl, you can do this. And from that point on, I just went for the highest goals and I just challenged myself to do more and more, regardless of how hard it was. For me, that was my motivation. If it was simple, I did not want to do it. If it was something hard and challenging, that got me out the bed in the morning. That got me working the 7, 8 hours, beyond my scheduled time at work or whatever, and just putting in an effort to get to that goal. And I'm here now just with the Shular Institute, just showcasing another generation on how they can take their career to another level by pushing and overcoming obstacles as well.
That's a great story. Give me the timeline of that. Where were you in your career prior to coming to be the executive chef in Atlanta? Was that a decade prior or 15 years prior or something when you won that competition?
So this was in 2004, and I graduated culinary school in 1993.
Okay.
And
okay.
I worked throughout the industry here in Atlanta, a lot of different restaurants and hotels, and I wanted to have that diversity. So I kind of like bounced around a little bit, kind of like what we do early on in our careers.
Sure.
And then at that point, I just got really heavy with the ACF and started to do a lot of competitions because I knew that the first time I tried out for the Olympic team was in 2003 for the 2004 team, and it didn't go well at all.
Okay.
And I walked away very defeated. And I said to myself, how do I position myself to be successful next time? So I had to humble myself and say, okay, let's study those guys who made the team, right? So I researched every single chef who made the Olympic team, and I saw that, hey, 1, they won a bunch of gold medals. 2, it was heavy in the ACF. They did some competitions ahead of time. They had some international experience. And so I just put my name in a hat with every culinary competition I can get into, just so I can test myself working in different environments, put myself under those very strenuous circumstances, and just really working hard to really achieve those goals. And in 2004, the story that I just told you, I had won the national title. And so it was a strip of, a period of time to where I was just winning competition, just really doing well. And that's when I really felt like I was ready to become a member of the U.S. Olympic team. And like I say, in 2006, I tried out in Chicago, Illinois, made the team. And in 2008, we went to Germany and got gold medals.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great story for the students who are listening about perseverance and keeping your eye on the goal, right? They say that successful people have similar characteristics, right? And it doesn't matter what their background, their upbringing is, what their faith is, what their political outlook is. I'm a big sports guy. John Wooden once said that things work out best for those who make the best of how things work out.
That's right.
Could you share some of the foundational principles that sort of ground you, right, and drive your work, and how do those principles show up in everything that you do, whether you're competing or you're running a successful business?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. I think the first thing, first and foremost, to have self-discipline. I have to control myself. And one of the things I always say to myself, don't let Daryl mess up what Chef Shular has, And I think we all have that personal side to us that is just kind of like, for me, if I wasn't a chef, I would be like at home, not really doing anything, just relaxing. So I don't want that side of me messing things up. So I think having that self-discipline is really important. The second thing, too, is being open to feedback. I think that is so important, that constructive criticism, not only from the people that you work for, but also your peers, the people that you're working with on the line. One of the best advice I ever received came from Chef Evans. He said, you learn more from the people that you actually work with. And I think that a lot of times we get in our shell and we just don't want to listen to the people around us. But I think you have to be open to that and become what I call like that global citizen and learn everyone's story and point of view. And then the third thing is to understand the business part of what we do as chefs and being in this hospitality industry. Because if you don't value the amount of time you put into something or the amount of, the cost that goes into something, then you really won't appreciate what the final outcome should be. Because if you're just cooking and just don't care about the cost or don't care about the time, there's no love in there at all. Yeah, and the reason why I say that is because when my mom used to cook, she thought about the amount of money she had to spend to get that whole chicken. To her, it probably cost her $3 for that back then, but in reality, it was like $100. So guess what? She's not going to waste that chicken. She's not going to not put any love into it. She's going to cherish that thing like a baby and present something that even today I remember. So I think for me, there's a lot of core principles that I try to follow, but I think those are like the three that I really stand upon. It's just keeping that intact and just being a good team player and professional person.
Yeah, I love the self-discipline. Mm-hmm. It all starts with that. Do you think there's anything missing right now in our industry that can help, young and up and coming cooks, chefs to have more longevity, to own their craft, and to maybe even experience at least some of the success that you've had?
I think young talent needs to understand the art of practice, like practicing your craft, because I equate culinary arts as a sport. Mm-hmm. The more you go out there and shoot those free throws, the better you're going to become. And I think that's really important because we think that once we make a dish the first time, the first thing we want to say is perfect. Yeah. And I'm sorry, it's not perfect. You got to work at it. You got to be honest with yourself. You got to dissect it more than just, it tastes good, it looks good. Get into the science of it, break it all the way down to seasonality. Does it make sense? Does it have a concept? And then once you understand all the nuances that make a really world-class dish, then you have to practice those skills, basic searing, those basic fundamentals that we take for granted. But I think in this generation, everything is just instant satisfaction, that we lose the art of practicing your craft in any and everything that you do. Prime example, I'll go in the morning and make me a bowl of oatmeal, but I'll make it as if I'm doing competition style. I'm going to hit it with the vanilla. I'm going to grate my cinnamon, a little fresh nutmeg. I'm going to finish it with some fresh cream, my fruit on top, just really bring it together. Sometimes I put blueberries in there and bake it so it bursts and give it that nice color, that nice flavor and that texture. Those are the things that you have to do. You have to be a master of your craft now so that when the time comes, you can show that mastery then.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So when I listen to your story, I mean, it's clear that your mental, emotional, physical endurance has 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 been tested in some of the most stressful environments that that a young cook or chef can ever enter. You've been an Olympian. I can't imagine the pressure, right, going over to Europe and competing. How would you advise, knowing that as your background, how would you advise, a young cook that's struggling? So, you've given them the advice, but they're still struggling to cross that finish line. Um, yeah, and on their culinary journey, and they're ready to give up. I mean, are there some strong words of advice to keep them going? Including what you've already mentioned about self-discipline and such. But sometimes people just need aspiration. They need to just be told that it's going to be okay. Tomorrow will be better than today. I'm sure you see some of that, at the Shular Institute now, right?
Right. Well, the first advice I would give is don't give up, because you'll never see how close you'll get to the goal if you don't try and if you don't put forth the effort to get there, first and foremost. And the second thing is find someone that you can be, that can mentor you, right? It's a humbling thing to go and take your work to someone else and say, hey, give me the constructive feedback that I need to be better.
Help me be better. Yeah.
Exactly. My mentor during that time was Chef Daryl, and I just remember how he was just like, I would walk away feeling like, man, I can't boil water. This is incredible. But
he's tough. He's tough.
He was tough, but I thank him for the honesty. I thank him for being direct. I thank him for not looking at me and say, well, he can't handle the truth. Let me sugarcoat my words. Sometimes when you're working with people that sugarcoat their words, I think they're doing more harm to you than good.
Yeah.
So I think young culinarians need to find people that they can go work for, but truly work for them, like truly be a student, truly learn, put forth the effort, bring something to the table, bring your professionalism to the table, bring your endurance to the table, bring your willingness to be on time, and not only just be on time, but be early and stay late if you have to, but do all those things that everyone else in the kitchen won't do. And you'll find yourself growing to a place to where you'll start to make huge gains towards your goal. Because I had to redefine myself as well, because I was going into the kitchen, making one dish, going home, taking pictures, call it a day. And it wasn't working.
Not enough.
It wasn't enough. Yeah. I had to stay in there almost 12 hours, 24 hours if I needed to get the job done to achieve the goal that I wanted to achieve.
Yeah, great response. Let's talk a little bit. I love that you're still involved with education. It all comes back to education, right? So the work that you're doing through Farm Ed and the Shular Institute, really, really exciting. And I love the idea of delivering education for the modern entrepreneur, chef, and hospitality professional. So much respect. So all of your ventures, I believe, have this educational component. Super aspiring. Helps young culinarians to sharpen their skills, learn from the industry, experts like you, develop their business acumen, as you mentioned. Can you talk a little bit? Here's your time for a little plug, Chef. Can you talk a little bit about Farm Ed and I guess more than anything, how the concept of Farm Ed and the Shular Institute come to life, and why are you so dedicated to mentoring this next generation of cooks and chefs? It's super important.
Well, first and foremost, the vision of Shular Institute and Farm Kitchen and Bar came about 6 years ago, actually, when I was with Le Cordon Bleu. And while I was here, I just saw the divide between what students were expecting to go out into the industry, what the industry were expecting of them, and what the curriculum was. The curriculum was outdated. It wasn't at the forefront of the industry. And I said to myself, hey, if I had ever had the opportunity to launch my own program, I want an institution that would be at the forefront of what we do as hospitality professionals. right? You think about the best, institutions in the world like John Hopkins, Emory universities. Those are higher educational institutions, but they're at the cutting edge of modern medicine and technology. And so why can't hospitality and hospitality education be at the forefront again? And I say the word again because at one point we were. And so I created a platform to where these students cook in a real world environment. They're face forward in front of guests, and they have to know what it feels like to have skin in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Because, Kurt, just like I know, we used to have students standing around the table and they would spend all day cutting vegetables, and the vegetables would go into a Lexan or a container, and it would go in a cooler, and it would just sit there and you call it a day.
Mm-hmm.
And how's that really setting you up for success in this day and age where so much pressure is placed on cooks in this day and age post-pandemic? So we want our students to be able to go out in industry, be day one ready. So the restaurant, farm, kitchen, and bar is just a playground for our students to really come in, exercise those principles, learn a la carte, and learn how to, manage a front of the house, bar, the whole nine, and really get that full day one experience and maximize their time on campus so that when they do go out into the industry, like I said before, they're day one ready. And then the second thing about this operation is that we also teach the business part of what schools should be teaching, because in culinary school you kind of learn some basic food costs, you learn your measurements, you learn your conversions, your measurements, and things like that. But do you really know how to build a business plan? Do you really know how to read financials the right way? Do you really know how to negotiate with your landlord? Do you know what to look for as far as paying your taxes? Do you know how to communicate with your local municipalities to look at what subsidies are out there to help you launch your business, and how to negotiate and meet with vendors and things like that? So we give our students the opportunity to really see how it is to really be entrepreneurs and business owners. And then the third pillar of what we do here is the science behind it, because we do know that once you learn the science and the culture behind a particular cuisine, then you're on the right road to mastering that craft, right? So we want our students to know where things come from, where there's from a particular region in Georgia. What does the soil look like? How do we get it from the seed to the plate? That information is missing a lot of times in culinary schools. And so I wanted to create something that will always stay trendy, will always keep our students at the forefront of the industry, and, put what I call the Navy SEALs of the hospitality industry out into the world. So we're super thrilled and proud to be here. We actually have our second location in Milwaukee that we're going to be launching next April. So we're expanding quite well. Now we have some large corporations that's really supporting us so that we can pipe our students into the workforce, but with companies that's going to support them and continue that development and that training, because it's important that the continual education continues. And so we're super thrilled about the ecosystem that we created here. And we just got so many great things happening. And, I'm just glad to have this opportunity to share it.
That's great. That's great. Congratulations on that. Talk a little bit about the timing. The last 18 months have been crazy. Did the pandemic throw you a little bit of a curveball that made you almost pivot on some of the techniques and philosophies that you were teaching?
Oh, absolutely. The pandemic, caused us not to be able to congregate anymore. We had to, not bring in the students. And so we had to really look at, what we had versus what we're going into, and how do we get ourselves ready for post-pandemic, because we knew it was going to come out of this situation, right?
Yeah.
But how do you prepare yourself for that post-pandemic world that we're in? And so me and my business partner, Sean Rush, we kind of came together and said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We really looked at our overall model, and then we started to launch certain things in sequence. So first we established a restaurant. The restaurant was open to the community, starting to put the word out there about what we're doing, bringing people into the facility, seeing the facility, tasting the food, meeting some of our students. And then from there, we started doing some of the catering arm, which is Earth First, which is our catering operation. And then we started to launch into some of our programming. We have an enthusiast program called Playbook, to where we bring in people from the community into our establishment to allow them to see what it's like to be an actual and official student of the Shular Institute, but at the same time, teach them the art of cooking as well. Not only do we have the online program, but also they can come in here and bring friends and family and do all kinds of team building fun things. So we just launched a lot of different projects while everything was just shut down. And that was probably the best decision that we made, because now I mean, we're on fire. I mean, our operation is like the talk of the town here in the Southeast in Atlanta. We're getting a lot of press, a lot of publicity, and we're just so grateful for that time to really repivot and get ourselves positioned again.
That's great. That's
Hmm.
great. That's so cool to hear. And yeah, you
Hmm.
planned while you had the opportunity.
Hmm.
I just want to come back to the 130-hour 8-day Master Chef exam. We can't underemphasize how difficult that is. Only 72 people have gotten through that. Um, I've heard several Master Chefs over the years say that you don't just show up for the CMC exam to learn. You show up to demonstrate what you know. If you show up
Hmm.
to learn, it's not going to go well, right? You've talked a little bit about how important the business side of the business is. Is that part of the CMC exam as well? Is there a business component to it?
Oh, absolutely. You got to take in consideration when you're cooking, right? And they give you a requisition for whatever, global or classical. Managing that product is business. Okay.
Yeah.
Waste, proper yield, butchery, cooking techniques, all that contributes to your bottom line. And
Hmm. Hmm.
so while we're not, formulating, numbers, anything on a daily basis, but those are the things that you just have to have coming to the table, or it just won't translate into the kitchen. That test is a test of a lifetime. So they're expecting certain things to be within you, even before you even step to the plate to even take that exam.
Sure, sure.
I just remember going through it, and each day I was learning, what I had to do. But it wasn't like they was giving out pamphlets and stuff and like, okay, this is what you need to study. They would give you like a pre-session lecture, but it's there, you there to show up. And 8 days is very difficult for you to kind of BS your way through it. I
Hmm.
think a lot of people think that, there are certain people that get through and certain people that don't. I mean, unfortunately, it's just what it is. And every chef that goes and take that test, those are like kings of the industry, every single one of them.
Hmm.
And you have to really be willing to put your reputation and everything on the line, fail or success. That's a test that takes a lot of courage. And any chef that's willing to put their career and reputation on the line to take that exam, my hat is off to you. And you are a warrior. And you can only give nothing but respect to any chef that's willing to take that test.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I think the future of the test depends on the future of our industry, and those young culinarians that's coming up, even through your program, seeing themselves as one day being a master of their craft and being a master chef. So we're hoping that this next generation don't turn their back on this and really embrace it and really pursue it.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. So you mentioned, we talked a little bit about Schuler Hospitality Group. You mentioned Plated Ed. Um, and we didn't talk about prep. Prep is kind of the commercial kitchen, right, where small
Hmm.
businesses get a little bit of support. How do Daryl? How do all of these entities sort of complement each other? And you've already talked about some additional ventures, Milwaukee. How does this all come together? Is there a kind of a mission and a vision that holds it all together? It's a lot. You've got a lot going on.
So you want me to give up my secrets on your podcast? I
Just a
see,
little
huh?
bit. Just a little bit. Yeah.
Well, Prep is they're the landlords of the facility here. They came in and I met with them back in late 2018, just right after the school had closed and everything in the building was liquidated and it was just dust in here. And we walked this facility and just I was just pointing out things that they should know, considering I was the DOE of this
Sure. Yeah.
property for
Yeah.
5 years. And so as we was walking through and, we kind of just had some conversations about how do we partner up and how do we help launch the Sugar Institute, which is, what was always on my plate. We actually met in Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville, Tennessee was going to be our first launching site.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
this facility came about. And then, of course, we took over and here we are. So Prep is the landlords in which we launched the school out of. How everything works together. When I was working at a country club, I had 7 different outlets. And one core center is the operation, food and hospitality, front of the house, back of the house. It all works together. And in the same model, that's kind of like what we're doing here. The engine is the hospitality piece, the restaurant, the back of the house, front of the house. And then from there, you have, our catering arm, you have our enthusiast programs, you have some of our educational components, which is a little bit off from what we're doing right now. That's a whole entity on its own. But it all works together as part of my mission. I could have went out there and just focused on strictly just opening restaurants, just opening businesses. But I had to stay true to my heart. And I love giving and I love mentoring. And I would never forget, I was in Orlando with Ferdinand Metz, and he kind of explained to me how he created the MasterChef exam. And in the United States, in order for you to be a master, you have to have apprentices. And so for me, I was like, you know what? Now, since I'm a master, I want to have apprentices. I want to be able to give back. And therefore, I created the Shular Institute as another entity outside of what we're doing as well. So they just happen to all come out at the same time. But it works. We have a team of people that really oversee some of our projects. We have a dynamic leadership group here. We have about 40 employees nationwide, a huge arm of just great professionals just really driving the quality here. And I'm super proud of what we're doing and where we're going.
That's great. So the secret's out. The secret's out.
And, not all of it.
It's some of those secrets. Ferdinand Metz. I mean, you're networking with some of the the greatest minds and names in the industry. If you could give one bit of advice to young culinary entrepreneurs, what would that be?
I would say be ready for the good and bad. And I know it's tough to really picture that. So I suggest this to anyone that's watching this. There's a show, a documentary on Netflix called Free Solo. And it's about this young man who actually climbed up the face of El Capitan in California, right? Watch that video, and that'll explain what being a business owner and entrepreneurship is all about. Because at the bottom, you're climbing up this wall, and you may slip and fall. You may break an arm, twist a leg, or whatever. But the higher you get, the harder you may fall. And that's the risk you have to take. Each movement has to be properly thought out. Each breath you take has to be thought out. It may be your last. And if you're not willing to go through that, then I would say maybe reconsider being an entrepreneur or a business owner. But if you're willing to take the risk, that's where the reward is.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important that you get everyone to buy in on it. You need your family support. You need your friends and family support. Really plan out how you're going to get through the next couple of years financially, how you're going to start raising capital, how you're just going to, where you're going to launch, who you're catering to. Really do your due diligence as a business owner. It's one thing to put onions in a pot, but it's another thing to sell those onions. Okay. And I think any young entrepreneur that's out there, don't be afraid. It is terrifying, but it's very rewarding to be your own boss and to be able to just say, hey, I'm taking a chance on my life and my future. And I encourage anyone to go out there and be a business owner, but take advantage of operators right now. Go work out in the industry for X amount of years. Get that experience. There's nothing wrong with spending a couple of years at a country club, a couple of years on the line in a restaurant, a couple of years in a hotel. Build yourself up first, and then take the chance to be a business owner.
Brilliant advice, and great analogies, by the way, too. Chef, we've kind of gotten to the end of our time together, but there's always one question. The name of the podcast is The Ultimate Dish. So in your life and in your family, what is the ultimate dish?
Well, the ultimate dish is a tribute to my mother. She would make these oxtails, and she would take this old pot that she had from her great grandmother, and it would still have the burn marks from when they used to cook it over charcoal. And she would put the oxtails in there with the onions and the carrots and the celery. And she would just take this broth that was left over from the turkey that she would make a couple of weeks before, and she would just put it on top and let it go for about 3 to 4 hours. And halfway through, she would throw in some potatoes, and she would throw in some fresh herbs. And then she would make this beautiful, rich, steamed rice bowl. And she would just put big chunks of that broth and oxtails on top with a big chunk of cornbread with some honey. To me, that's the ultimate dish that I remember.
Oh, that's beautiful, Chef. Yeah. You're a storyteller. Yeah, that takes us back. That takes us back. Chef, thank you for spending some time with us today. I look forward to seeing you the next time. that I get to Atlanta. You know, the funniest story is there's a gentleman in my neighborhood whose brother was the person that sort of started prep, and that got me going. And I went to the internet and I see prep, and I find
Right.
everything that you're doing there. So congratulations again, my friend.
Thank you.
Good to see you, buddy.
Thank you, and all the best to you. Thank you, my friend.
I appreciate it. Thank you for listening to the Ultimate Dish Podcast, brought to you by Auguste Escoffier School of Culinary Arts. Visit escoffier.edu/podcast, where you'll find any materials mentioned during the podcast, including notes, links, and other resources. You can also browse other episodes and subscribe.